Here's the reading of the interesting narrative of the life of Olaudah Equiano. Here's an editor's note. From about 1400 to the 1800s, about 10 million to 12 million people were sold into slavery. Olaudah Equiano was one of them and wrote about his experiences. According to his autobiography published in 1789, he was only 11 when he was kidnapped from his family and was forced onto a slave trading ship bound for Barbados and then Virginia. Below, he describes the terrible journey across the Atlantic Ocean in what was called the Middle Passage. The first thing that I saw when I arrived on the coast was a slave ship waiting for its cargo. I was filled with surprise and then fear when I was carried on board. I was convinced that I had entered a world of bad spirits and that they were going to kill me. Their skin color and their long hair were very different from ours, and their long hair and the language they spoke was very different from any I had ever heard. Indeed, I was so afraid that I would have exchanged places with the most miserable slave in my own country. When I looked around the ship and saw black people chained together, I no longer doubted my fate. Overwhelmed with horror and grief, I fainted. When I recovered, I found some black people about me. I asked them if we were going to be eaten by those white men with horrible looks, red faces, and long hair. They told me I was not. I now saw that I had no chance of returning to my native country. I was soon put down under the decks, where there was a terrible smell and many people were crying. I became so sick and depressed that I was not able to eat, and now wished to die. But soon 2 of the white men offered me food. When I refused, one of them held me by the hands and tied my feet, while the other whipped me severely. I would have jumped over the side of the ship if I could have. A little time later, among the poor chained men, I found some people from my own country. I felt a little better. I asked what was to be done with us, and they told me we were being taken to these white people's country to work for them. But still I feared I should be put to death. The white people looked and acted, I thought, so savagely and heartlessly, and I had never seen such brutal behavior. The ship was so crowded that each person had hardly enough room to turn around, and the small space in the heat made it very hard to breathe. It made the slaves sick, and many of them died. The shrieks of the women and the groans of the dying were so awful that it was almost unbelievable. At last we came in sight of the islands of Barbados, and the ship soon anchored. Many merchants and planters now came on board, and they seemed very excited to see us. They put us in separate groups and examined us, and also made us jump to see if we were healthy. We were taken soon to a merchant's yard, where we all were locked up together, men, women, and children. We were soon sold in the usual way. On a signal, like the beat of a drum, the buyers rushed at once into the yard and chose the group of slaves they liked best. Families and friends were separated, and most of them never saw each other again. I remember on the boat there were several brothers who were sold to different buyers. It was very emotional to see and hear how they cried when they were separated. It is not enough that we are torn from our country and friends. We must work so that they can buy fancy goods and make money. Must our feelings be sacrificed to their greediness? Why must our dearest friends and relations be parted from each other so they cannot even be comforted by being together? Why must parents lose their children, brothers their sisters, or husbands their wives? Surely there is a new type of cruelty that makes the suffering worse and adds new horrors to slavery.